Okay, so let's start here with the big picture. So I'll be moving a little bit fast. Uh, I believe you all have a good fundamental grasp now, good basic grasp. So let us start from the top and let us start from the messaging. So UE first starts when UE is turned on, it first goes through the syncing process in downlink. It reads pss sss, then it starts accumulating information, like from pss sss it knows cell id, then from mib it knows bandwidth and phich configuration, etc., etc., multiple things. All these things help ue make a clear picture about what this particular cell is all about, how the resource grid looks, and how the cell is going to behave in a certain manner. Then it reads SIP1 to understand more about the cell. It helps the UE in realizing whether the UE should be camping on the cell or not, whether the PLMN matches or not, whether the cell is barred or not. So basically, SIP1 on the from the top is a broadcasted information collection which basically tells you all about the cell related parameters. Then we have SIP2 and other SIPs. The location of these SIPs is notified via SIP1 only. SIP1 tells how these, what's the periodicity of each of these SIP and where to look for them. And we have seen all that in very much detail earlier. So SIP2 mostly deals with multiple physical channel related configuration like PRACH, PUSCH, PUCCH, PDSCH, etc., etc. Specifically PRACH configuration and RACH configuration also is there, because without that you cannot move ahead. And after that you starts with message one, which we have covered in detail. So message one is contention based message, because the resource selection for this message happens based on broadcasted info that is available to all. Then there is a response. This we have also covered in detail, how it happens, what happens if it is not received, etc., etc., everything. And this is received based on DCI. So first you know reads the PDCCH, blindly decodes the PDCCH, finds the DCI, and then DCI points toward this message. Then UE sends message 3. So this we went through that what's the use of message 3. Message 3 is RRC level message. So RRC here is trying to make a connection uh, so that things can move seamlessly. And RRC includes a UE identity here and an originating cause, like why it needs to create a connection, whether it's being done for a mobile originating call or mobile terminating call, or multiple other things can be there. uh, and again, all this is based on broadcasting information. So contention is not resolved until this point, and we have discussed contention in detail. So I believe you are now able to create a picture in your mind and understand what I mean when I say the contention is not resolved yet. So UE starts a contention resolution timer. Another thing about message 3 we discussed yesterday is that message 3 is a message that you will retransmit. Okay. Same buffer, same message buffer you will retransmit. So it is basically a HARC associated message, and since it is a HARC associated message, there will be a HARC response in downlink. So there is a HARC response in downlink. And after that, once it is ACK, then you will wait for message 4, which is contention resolution message. And before that, even to read this message, since this is a PDSCH message, the UE will have to first decode the control region, and that would mean a decoding of DCI again. And once the DCI is decoded, UE can read a contention resolution message and compare its own message 3 to this received message 4. If they are comparable, if the comparison is fine, then it means that the contention is resolved. In that case, UE sends a HARC ACK for this particular contention resolution message and stops the contention resolution timer. And then UE knows that the dedicated configuration will be coming, because if there is no dedicated communication, all the communication between UE and network is going to be contention based, which would be very tedious and very inefficient. So we will need a dedicated configuration so that all the UEs can live in harmony and can exchange data without you know colliding with each other all the time. So collision we have avoided here and managed till this point, but now we would require some dedicated configuration, and that dedicated configuration comes in the next message after the message 4, and it is another downlink message. So we would need to read a DCI in control region. It would read the DCI, and that DCI will point it to RRC connection setup message. Okay, everybody. Questions at this point? None, really? I thought it was quite a very long explanation. So that's great. So RRC connection setup message. Let's see what it entails. As I said, it entails a dedicated configuration collection. So it's a CCCH message. So we have logical channels between RLC and MAC, and RLC maps the messages, the signaling messages, to either common control channel or a dedicated control channel. So all the messaging that has been happening till now has been happening on uh, common control. So we have seen two RRC messages, RRC message 3 and this one RRC connection setup. Both of them will be traveling on control, on common control, because dedicated signaling has not been established yet, which will be established at this point. So for that, for dedicated signaling, we will need an SRB. Okay, signaling radio bearer. Signaling radio bearer are 0, 1, and 2. Okay, but the thing is, 0 is common for all the UEs. It's a common signaling radio bearer, so it is shared. Whereas SRB 1 is dedicated to each UE. For each UE, there is a different SRB 1 that is created. So this part, this configuration creates an SRB list for uh, each UE dedicatedly. So this one is that. Okay, and other logical channel config can be associated with this particular SRB1. It's not being provided here, default values are being provided, but they can also be configured. And next one is Mac config. Am I audible? Hello? Okay, okay. Keep reassuring me. Sometimes it feels like call is dropped and just me talking. Anyways, so in Mac config we have multiple types of configs. For example, there is a HARC transmission. Like understand it like this. So if a packet is being nagged, it's not being received properly, we should not be stuck in a loop of sending it over and over and over again. There should be some limit, like maybe it's a sync loss, complete sync loss. So in that case we won't send 100 packets, 100 retransmissions, that won't make sense. So to keep us out of the loop, out of that vicious circle, we have max HARC transmission parameter here. Currently it says 5, so 5 transmissions as per this example are allowed. Next is BSR. BSR related to timers. So these two timers are related to a procedure called buffer status report. On top level, buffer status report is a procedure that UE invokes when UE needs a grant in uplink. So it indicates to network that I have some queue load in uplink and I need grant. If you want to understand it on a deeper level, if you want to understand the meaning of these parameters, you can watch a video that I have made on BSR. Okay, so this is my opinion that when studying RRC connection setup or reconfiguration or these things, basically the collection of configuration, when we study, the good idea is not to study each IE in detail. It's not a good idea. The idea is to just know what kind of configuration is coming, and then when you study the procedure in detail, then you go into the detail of each one. So if you read BSR, then this will be very helpful to you. Similarly, there is a DRX config. I have a video on DRX also, so you can go check that out. And DRX is basically a procedure which is used to save the battery from UE. As we know, UE receives data by blindly decoding control region. So, for example, if UE is not actually, nothing is being scheduled for UE, nothing is happening with the UE, then it is a bad idea to keep on, decoding control region every subframe. So DRX is a procedure that says if there is a certain level of inactivity, if you are not receiving anything, um, and you're not sending anything, then you should not just go on decoding control region every subframe, but you should do it sporadically. You know, there are some occasions configured to UE that come to these occasions and look, if you have something, then come out of DRX. Otherwise, just keep on looking, keep on uh, you know, receiving only at DRX occasions. Otherwise, just don't save your battery. Then again, there is a time alignment timer. We had discussed this earlier also, and there is another video based on that also. So for each UE, we can configure a time alignment timer, and within this timer, you should receive a timing advance max CE. So this helps in keeping preventing sync loss. This helps in preventing sync loss between UE and the network. Next is PHR config. So PHR config is power headroom config. So there is another procedure called power headroom report. So that report is basically a UE's way of telling the network that, okay, if you're not able to receive my data properly, since there are a lot of NACs you are sending to me, it seems you are not able to receive my data properly. So please take this input from my side that this much headroom is still remaining. I can apply more power. So power headroom indicates basically kind of a delta between the power that UE is currently applying and the power UE can apply, I mean the maximum UE power based on the UE capabilities. So this particular configuration pertains to that. Then we have PD SCH config, power related parameters are there. PU SCH config, I don't know what this IE means. Maybe you should look. And PUSH config dedicated. For example, in PUSH config dedicated, we are here indicating beta offsets for ACK, RI, and CQI index. So these offset helps UE in calculating the resources for CQI, RI, and ACK over the PU's SCH, and how they need to what resources, if they have a grant for data on PUSCH, then what resources they should steal in order to send HARCAC or RI or CQI over that particular grant itself. So these offsets provide that. Then there is an uplink power control dedicated parameters. This you will go into detail when you will study uplink UL power related procedures, power control basically. And then similarly, the CQI related parameters, whether there is an aperiodic CQI or periodic, etc., etc. I mean, multiple things. And then there is scheduling request related parameters. So scheduling request is also just as I mentioned about BSR. Scheduling request also is another procedure that is used to ask for uplink grant under different conditions. BSR will be triggered for same purpose, but under different circumstances, whereas scheduling request will be triggered under different circumstances. So basically, this is all the this mess about this message. So this message basically provides UE with the dedicated configuration that whatever procedure you need, whatever procedure you are triggering, whatever you need to do, follow these particular configurations so that the life becomes easy for you, so that network is able to manage multiple UEs simultaneously. Any questions? Yes, no, maybe. Okay,
No questions.
good. So let's go there. So that is all about RRC connection setup. Once the RRC connection setup is there, Now since all the PDSH transmissions are HARC related, okay, yeah, so this is some kind of error here. So it says DCI to decode RRC connection setup and says again DCI to decode RRC connection setup. This is actually wrong. uh, this is wrong. So there should be a DCI for RRC connection setup and then RRC connection setup, and then UE should send HARC ACK. Okay, because RRC connection setup is now all the PDSCH messages are HARC associated. So this is also a little bit problematic here. So what UE should do? Where should UE send the HARC? Sorry, no, not problematic. It's correct. So now we have received RRC connection setup. UE will know that okay, now I can send HARC ACK because it has received uh, configuration based on which it can schedule HARCAC on PUCCH. So UE sends HARCAC, and then UE needs to send another message called RRC connection setup complete. So this will indicate to RRC that okay, RACH procedure is successful, RRC correction has been made. And this message will travel on SRB1, which has been recently calculated. So this is a DCCH message. This goes on a DCCH logical channel. That is an important part. Also, it also encapsulates an attach request, which is NAS message, which kind of started it all. Okay, but to send this, what does the UE need? Can anybody tell me? Please, somebody tell me. To send this message, what does UE need? Hello? Come on, people, take some guess, take some chances. Nobody? Okay, so to send this message, you will need some grant in the uplink side. If there is no grant, you cannot send the message. So to get that particular grant, what UE does is UE triggers a scheduling request procedure. Okay, to know that in detail, you can visit my channel. There is one video for that, and that will clear it up actually very nicely. So UE triggers a scheduling request, and in response, network sends grant in DCI 0. DCI 0 is specifically for uplink grant, and on that uplink grant, UE schedules RRC setup complete and sends attach request. And in response, it receives HARC and RLCX for this particular message. RLC also employs ACK mechanism through ARQ. It's not HARC but ARC. And after this, so this here, right here, we can actually say completely that RACH procedure is successful. And after that, we have multiple procedures that happen between core network and UE, like authentication. So during authentication, UE and network authenticate each other. Basically, that UE authenticates that it's connecting to um, uh, correct network. It's not a dummy or pretending network. And network authenticates the UE. And then there is a security mode command that basically configures network configures UE. Network commands UE what kind of security network shall be applying, and what kind of security you should be applying on its messages when speaking with NAS. And then same thing happens at access stratum level also. So there is an RRC security mode command, and once these are complete, then RRC sends dedicated configuration again. Okay, because initially when RRC send the configuration through RRC setup, in that case it sends a bare minimum uh, configuration. Basically, it doesn't send a lot of it because the UE has not been verified, the UE has not been authenticated, or security has not been, you know, established. So there is a possibility that this UE may not be admitted at all after all. So here it happens. it so happens that RRC configuration, it provides a more comprehensive configuration. And then UE sends RRC complete, and this is where UE also sends attach complete, and this is where we can say that the attach is complete. So this is overall complete picture of attach. In between you will see that we have spoken about like authentication and all. You will see that for each message there is a in if it's in downlink, there is a DCI that indicates the message is coming. If we have to send something in uplink, then there is a DCI that schedules grant in uplink, and then the har goes. Or uh, or if UE has to send something, UE first indicates it through scheduling request, gets grant, and then sends something in uplink. So if I would I would highly recommend it. And I would highly recommend to you people to go through this particular table, especially very. I mean, you should go through this very in a very dexterity manner, basically, so that nothing is missed. So this is the bigger picture, top level, on initial attach. I have gone into much detail while discussing PSS, SSS, and RACH procedure specifically, because those are the RAN level procedures, and those I know better. But authentication and the security mode and all these are more related to uh, core network. So I would uh, urge you to go through them by yourself. And if you have any kind of particular or specific doubts, then you can send over to me. I'll see, and I'll check, and maybe we can schedule another session for these. Any particular questions based on this, or anything else? I'll take that as a no. So maybe you can go through this. And there has been a lot of discussions that we have had. I think it's what, like ninth or 10th discussion between us. So maybe go through that, and come back to me if you have any specific doubts or any problems in understanding any particular procedure or anything, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I suppose we can close it